Imagine a quiet, heavily guarded evening at a luxury hotel. Hundreds of elite guests are finishing their dinner. Then, completely without warning, the crack of gunfire forces everyone into a desperate scramble beneath the tables. The target in this scenario is former President Donald Trump, sitting right in the middle of what is supposed to be the tightest security perimeter on Earth. Now, while this specific scenario is a hyper-realistic simulation of a potential future event, the vulnerability it highlights is completely real today. We naturally assume that groups like the Secret Service or a Z+ detail operate like this diagram, creating a flawless, impenetrable shield around a leader where absolutely no threats can pass through. The professionals actually doing the protecting know that is physically impossible. They operate on a principle called managed vulnerability. They can calculate risk, they can filter risk, and they can reduce risk, but they can never truly eliminate it. Because a perfect protective bubble defies the laws of physics, a single determined individual with a weapon can still manage to breach the defenses of the most guarded people on the planet. To understand how those breaches happen, look at this security architecture. Protection details structure their defenses in concentric circles, starting with the widest, most permeable layer, the outer ring. This zone encompasses the massive footprint around an event. We are talking about public streets, adjoining high-rise buildings, and the expansive parking lots outside a venue. Controlling this area is an administrative nightmare. Security forces cannot shut down an entire metropolitan grid or run background checks on the thousands of pedestrians going about their daily lives. Attackers routinely exploit this exact blind spot. A standard tactic is to simply bypass the perimeter by legally renting a private room in the venue's hotel days or even weeks before the VIP arrives on site. At this outer layer, security is essentially making a calculated gamble. They rely heavily on visual deterrence and counter-surveillance, accepting that they cannot physically restrict everyone. As we move inward to the middle ring, the strategy shifts from observation to absolute physical restriction. This is the bottleneck where everyone must be screened. You know this layer well. It relies on heavy, immovable hardware, metal detectors, X-ray scanners, and physical pat-downs, designed to strip away weapons before anyone gets close to the target. But attackers rarely fight the hardware. They attack the administration. They bypass the metal detectors entirely by exploiting the credential system, using forged press badges, fake VIP invitations, or posing as catering staff to walk right through the checkpoints. And the deadliest failure at this stage is the insider threat. When the credentialed protectors themselves turn their weapons on the target, the entire screening process is rendered useless. The assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi by her own bodyguards proved exactly how fatal that loophole is. If an attacker clears the outer streets and the screening checkpoints, they arrive in the inner ring. This is the immediate, intimate space shared by the VIP and their close protection detail. Here, the tools change drastically. There are no more background checks or metal detectors. This last line of defense relies entirely on heavy tactical gear, thick ballistic shielding, and the bodies of the agents themselves. Operating in this space introduces what protection details fear most: the last 10 seconds problem. When an armed individual manages to get within conversational distance of the target, every single systemic protocol instantly falls apart. Survival suddenly hinges entirely on split-second human reaction times. The assassination of Rajiv Gandhi perfectly illustrates this point. An attacker was allowed to slip through the perimeter to present a garland of flowers. By the time the immediate threat was recognized, the proximity was too close, and millions of dollars in prior security planning instantly evaporated. If an attacker successfully forces the situation into that tiny 10-second window of physical proximity, the security apparatus has already failed. At that point, the agents are no longer protecting the VIP. They are desperately trying to evacuate them from a disaster in progress. There is a sharp contrast between how these security forces are built and the ultimate nightmare they face. Protection details are massive, structured, and rigidly organized. Their worst enemy is isolated and entirely asymmetrical. Look at this network model. Intelligence agencies are highly effective at stopping organized terror groups because groups communicate. But a lone wolf operates as a disconnected dot. They don't coordinate with a network. which means there are no digital trails, no intercepted emails, and no planning chatter for the authorities to flag. Without an organization backing them, their actions are incredibly spontaneous. They don't follow the predictable, established playbooks that global intelligence agencies spend billions of dollars studying. It comes down to a brutal mathematical reality. As a public figure gathers more influence and visibility, the statistical certainty that they will eventually attract a dangerous, isolated extremist goes up. You cannot be highly visible to hundreds of millions of people without catching the attention of someone deeply unstable. When these attackers finally strike, they rely on total surprise. They bypass the complex layers by rapidly rushing perimeters, forcing the confrontation before highly trained tactical forces even have time to deploy their countermeasures. Security perimeters are expertly designed to minimize risk and manage vulnerabilities as best they can. But the sheer unpredictability of human behavior guarantees one harsh truth: absolute safety is an illusion.